Robby. Juliet.
Hey, Juliet. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for talking to me again. I know the last time I was a little bit nervous and I wasn't like totally myself, and I used the word rad like 5 times.
So, oh yeah, I like rad. Rad is my initials, R-A-D.
Oh, well, you are rad.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, you have agreed to talk to me about the Texas horned lizard today.
Yeah.
Right? So this is one that's I'm excited to hear about from you because I've actually seen one before. I've seen it in Amarillo on a hike, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, I checked out your iNaturalist account, and you had at least 3 photographs. So I was
I mean, I haven't seen them often. Apparently, they used to be everywhere, but now you kind of have to hunt for them a little bit to find them.
Yeah, that's what my father-in-law said too. He used to see them all over when he was growing up, and now it's kind of a rare sight. So they are on the threatened list, and it seems like at least one generation ago, a lot of people have actually felt that change. So this would be
interesting. Yeah, true. Even here in Austin, apparently they used to be in people's yards, like out in the suburbs. And there's still some places around. There's a little population actually in Smithville, in downtown Smithville, just about an hour east of here, where they're still hanging on.
Really, downtown?
Yeah. It's in someone's yard, and it's like their yard and like a few yards around there. That's the place to go. Like the closest place to go is from Austin to see them.
So is there some sort of thought as to why there's been this big change over such a short amount of time?
Yeah, the main hypothesis is fire ants. Horned lizards are basically they just kind of sit on the ground, and they lay their eggs on the ground. They live their whole life on the ground. They kind of bury themselves a little bit in certain seasons, but they really have no way of getting away from fire ants. Like they didn't evolve with fire ants. Fire ants are from South America, and they came over here in shipping containers, and they first showed up in Louisiana, I think it was, or maybe Alabama. And since they've spread throughout the entire Southeast, and a lot of things that are ground-based, both invertebrates and vertebrates, are having trouble as a result of fire ants, and that's the main hypothesis for the horned lizards as well.
That's really fascinating. I hadn't heard that change, but I know like anybody who's lived in Texas has had an experience with fire ants, and can't imagine living like on the ground next to them. So.
Right, totally. Yeah, if we were as small as a lizard and we had babies on the ground, yeah, it would be really scary.
Aww. So do you think that is the main reason why it's threatened then in your thought?
Yeah, they definitely have some other factors as well. I mean, habitat loss and modification. Obviously, they probably can't live in a yard that's all St. Augustine grass or whatever. And certainly they can't live on a parking lot. But because in the past they lived in areas, they coexisted with humans. Up until fairly recently. And so, yeah, I think the main hypothesis is the fire ants.
Let me go back just a little bit. Can you describe what a Texas horned lizard looks like, or just speak a little bit about what's special about these reptiles?
Sure. Yeah, they're a little. Well, they're actually fairly big for a horned lizard. They can get up to like 6 inches long, I think, and they're really wide for a lizard. Like most lizards are pretty long and slender, but the horned lizards in general are a lot wider and flatter. They're kind of like a pancake shape.
Yeah.
And obviously they're covered in spines, hence the horned lizard. They've got two big horns on their head, and then a couple of smaller horns, and then little spines all down their back and on their tail. Let's see, they're kind of brown, and they've got, some of them especially have nice spots on the back. They're kind of ringed in yellow, really pretty.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're iconic. I feel like most people that live in the Southwest, even people that don't live in the Southwest, probably know about horned lizards, and I think Texas horned lizard is one of the most famous of them.
I do have a question about those horns. Like, do they use them for something, defense, or I guess camouflage? Or
I mean, presumably they evolved as some sort of defense against being eaten. There are several species of horned lizards. One of their main predators are birds, and birds would have a hard time swallowing a lizard that's got these long spines relative to a normal smooth, slender lizard. There are some birds that still eat them. You've probably heard of loggerhead shrikes. These are a little songbird that they can eat horned lizards because they kind of tear apart their food, whereas most birds just swallow their food whole. But shrikes are one of the main predators of horned lizards, and it's obviously not a good defense against them. But other kinds of birds, I think, are probably deterred by those spines.
And one of my favorite things that I learned just this last year about Texas horned lizard is another defense, which is it's kind of an exciting one. Can you share about any of its other defenses?
So I'm guessing you're talking about the blood squirting.
I am. It's so wild. So wild.
Squirting blood out of their eyes. Yeah. That's another defense. And I guess for a while people didn't really know what was going on. Like maybe it was just a startle predator. Like something is coming along and sniffing the lizard, and all of a sudden it gets blood in its face, and it just scares it away.
Yeah.
But I've heard recently that perhaps the lizards are they're getting something in their diet that's like slightly poisonous or distasteful, and concentrating it in their blood. And so not only is the predator getting a face full of blood, the blood also like tastes really strong and bad, and that makes them upset. So one of the herpetologists at UT Austin, David Hillis, he has these horned lizards on his ranch, and he's interacted with them a bunch. He said he's been sprayed in the face with the blood from one of these lizards once, and it really burned his eyes, he said. Even though it didn't really get directly in his eyes, he said it was still enough to really burn his eyes.
Wow. I hadn't heard that aspect, that it actually feels, it's like caustic almost.
Right.
Or I would personally leave alone something that squirted me with blood. That's
right. And apparently they don't do it often to people. Like, apparently they do it a lot to dogs. So if you let your dog sniff the lizard, it might get blood in its face. So maybe it evolved specifically as a defense against like coyotes.
That's really interesting. So, and did you say where they're found? I mean, not only in Texas, right?
Yeah, they go up into the Great Plains, like Oklahoma. I'm not sure the exact extent of their range. There are a bunch of different horned lizards. We have 3 here in Texas, and as you go west, there's maybe a dozen more species out west. And the Texas horned lizard, I think, is more the central part of the U.S. And into Mexico, I'm pretty sure as well, because they're all the way at the border in South Texas, so they're probably over there in Mexico as well.
So I am curious, in your opinion, why should people care about the longevity of this specific reptile?
Well, to me, I mean, this is like a really iconic species. I mean, it's almost like rattlesnakes or something, where it's like you think of Texas and you think of like the rattlesnakes and horned lizards. So, yeah, to me, they're just a really awesome species that, just in their own right, like who wouldn't want these to keep on existing?
Totally.
But yeah, they're also they can be like a canary in the coal mine kind of thing, where, if this horned lizard is in trouble, this is a really obvious and charismatic species, and things that are problematic for it are probably problematic for other things as well that we might not be paying as much attention to. Totally. And so, just knowing that there's a problem with them and figuring out what the cause of that problem is will probably help us conserve a bunch of other life as well.
You're right. When somebody sees a lizard, especially a horned lizard, you really take notice, but people might not notice as much some of the other smaller insects that are being affected by the fire ants, for example. So that's,
right.
So then, in your opinion, how would the average person be able to help the species? Are there action steps or any organizations or conservation projects that you know about or that we should know about?
Sure, yeah. So there are several groups that are trying to get rid of fire ants through various means. I know the University of Texas has a whole invasive species eradication program that they're working on, and fire ants are a main, one of the main species that they're working on trying to deal with. It's more controlling their populations, I guess. At this point, they're probably going to be really hard to completely eradicate. But just learning about the problems, trying to get rid of fire ants in your own yards, and supporting any sort of efforts to make the habitat more, more available for where the lizards used to be. Like here in Austin, for example, if people could get rid of the fire ants in their yard, perhaps reintroduction efforts would be fruitful. They are trying to reintroduce the horned lizards in various places. In fact, that researcher that I mentioned, David Hillis, he is letting some folks reintroduce horned lizards onto his ranch. That's part of the reason why he's had so many interactions with them. The San Antonio Zoo, I think, is one of the main places that are doing captive breeding of the lizards and trying to reintroduce them with help from Texas Parks and Wildlife.
You know what? I should have asked you from the beginning who you are and why you happen to know about this species.
I'm Robby Deans. I'm an aquatic scientist. I got my PhD at UT Austin. Now I'm working for the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. But in terms of horned lizards, I guess I knew about horned lizards even since I was a little kid. I always loved nature, and my favorite books growing up were field guides, and especially herp field guides, reptiles and amphibians. So that was like my favorite book, and I would just flip through the pages and salivate over all of these crazy reptiles, especially that were out west. I'm from North Carolina, and I don't know, the reptiles in North Carolina just seem so provincial to me. I guess just growing up with them and have them as the familiar species. I always wanted to go out west and see the horned lizards and the sidewinders and that kind of thing, the charismatic reptiles. Yes. So I've known about horned lizards forever, and I had a friend group here in Texas when I was getting my PhD at UT Austin, and they were really into natural history, and I would go all over Texas looking for everything, birds and reptiles and plants. We took a few targeted trips to try to see horned lizards.
I love the thought of you seeing your first horned lizard after being a little kid dreaming of it someday. I think that's just really cool. And now,
I mean, it's still exciting. Even today, I'm still like looking at field guides, looking at websites like iNaturalist, and finding new targets that I'm excited about going to try to find as well.
Well, on that note, I did check out your iNaturalist again today, and you're up to almost 20,000 sightings or entries, 19,889, which is so amazing. How much you're out there in the field and like identifying and really, seeing the world and sharing it. I know that living near you, our neighborhood is mapped, and pretty much anything that I come across, I can look at your iNaturalist and try to figure it out or text you. So it's really been amazing to be your neighbor. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun. I just love doing it, and you don't even have to go far. I mean, thousands and thousands of my observations are from right here in our yard, and we're still getting more and more species every single week. It's like we're finding new things right here in the yard, especially at the porch lights. I go out almost every night and shine my flashlight at our porch light, looking at what insects have come in attracted to the light. Like 1,800 species or something right here in our yard.
Nature in our backyards. I love it. Well, this is really fun, and I would venture to say it was even rad. And you definitely are. So thank you so much for letting me talk to you again. And I really learned some things about the horned lizard. So thank you. All right. Take care, Robby. Bye-bye.
You as well, Juliet. Bye. Thanks.